How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto abandoned his village and built harem of 7 girls in HOTD, Part 2. Huge shout out to Black Fox 1991 for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Okay, we are here, Hirano said as they entered what looked like a woodshop classroom. What do we do now? Although, I do see some things that would come in handy. Just shut up, you chubby geek, Saya growled, clearly annoyed. Lock the door so they won't come in. Hirano quickly did that and turned back to the girl. I locked it. Seeing the tools laid out on the desk in front of her, he asked, Are you going to use those as weapons? You're one of those basement shut-ins, one of those military nerds or gun geeks, aren't you? Come on, you must have seen this thing before. It was in that Mel Gibson movie. A nail gun, and it's gas, Hirano said as he observed it. Hell yeah! We won't be able to carry it around if it was one of those compressor types, right? God, you're fat and stupid, Saya sighed. So you like movies? Hirano asked as he worked. Don't be ridiculous. I am a genius, so I know everything, Saya stated like it was obvious. As Hirano went through all their supplies that they found, he asked a question that had been bothering him. So, how do you know Naruto? Saya looked at him stupidly before saying. Simple, Hisashi introduced us. He was having trouble with some of his studies and I offered to help. Although our first meeting was different to say the least. In this FIC, Hisashi's parents knew Takagi's, but there was no close relationship between them, they were just friends. Flashback. It's a week since Naruto transferred to this school. Now Naruto and Hisashi were standing in the hallway during lunch break. We can see Naruto leaning against the window sipping his orange juice can, with a straw. Hisashi was facing a twin-tailed pink-haired girl. Saya, meet my friend here, Naruto Uzumaki, said Hisashi gesturing towards Naruto. Naruto stopped sipping and looked up at the girl with a bored gaze. Yo! Then he again starts sipping. Hisashi's sweat dropped lightly at his friend's laziness. But the girl didn't take it too well, so replied arrogantly, Nice to meet you, stupid, with a smirk. Naruto took another sip before looking at the girl with his usual gaze. Hisashi looked between the two nervously like waiting for a bomb to blast, but what happened next was great. Did you say something? Asked Naruto innocently. You could even see the question marks over his head. Hisashi face felt hard while Saya has gone white to blue to red with anger. As Hisashi slowly stand up, he tried to stifle his giggles, but was horribly failing. Girl grew some tick marks. How dare you to ignore me? I am genius, you know. Naruto blinked at her confusingly. So? Hisashi could not control anymore, so burst out laughing, while Saya stared at him as if he was crazy. So? Yeah, so, you are a genius, good for you, but what it has to do with me? Girl tried to come up with a retort but couldn't. He was right, what his reason to know she was a genius, he didn't even know her. Hisashi slowly controlled his laughter and spoke. Actually, Takagi, Naruto here come from a literally small town, so in studies he is not that good, could you help him? Girl first blinked but then gained a smug look. So, you want help, how many days you need, idiot? Then I will decide. Naruto thought for a moment. 5 days will be enough for this term. And nodded to himself while in thinking pose. Takagi and Hisashi stared at him in shock with jaw drops. Man, are you really thinking of completing half syllabus in 5 days? Asked Hisashi incredulously. While Saya just stared. Naruto looked at him in confusion. Yeah, people said that I am fast at learning things, so it will be okay. While he really thinks he can do that much in only 5 days, even I can't do that. Then she gained a smug smirk. Well, then we will see about that. If you fail, you will announce yourself that I am better than you and a genius. Naruto smiled lazily and shook her hand. Deal. After that, he studied 5 days with Saya. The girl was just too shocked. He would spend about 15 seconds on one page before continuing, means he would complete a book in only 1 or 2 hours. And if she asked something from previous material, he would answer yawning without missing a beat. After that, she realized that in front of him she had fallen short. However, she couldn't understand how a person like him be a genius. But after first term she was sure of that. He has gained first rank. And the most infuriating thing was that he barely attends any class. Most of the time she will find him sleeping at the roof or nurse room or stairs. Even interest near PE and the class he attend he would fall asleep. Teachers were infuriated with him badly. How can someone rank first without being in class? They tried to expel him through principal, but he just said, "Everyone has his quirks, this is his. As long as he produces results it will be alright." Part, which she didn't tell but remind herself. It mostly affects her. She was intrigued by this enigma. The most they know was he came from a small town, leaving his home for studies. Whenever they tried to ask something, he would somehow escape from the question without them even recognizing. That's where her crush starts building. She would try to spend time with him, while he just lazes around or met few people that are all. Nor intimidate relationship with anyone. The close he has were Rei and Hisashi, well they are the only ones he has let her met. Slowly his personality also rubbed on her, his carefree attitude just attract like a magnet. Not that she would tell him about her crush, of course. Although, if he ever asked her out, she was definitely say yes. But of course, since they were friends, they usually hung out normally anyway. Flashback end. Hirano wanted to laugh at what he heard, but he controlled himself as he worked on the nail gun. "You're right, that meeting was a bit different. But what made you be friends after that incident?" Saya smiled. "After I come to know that he is a knowledgeable person, I start spending time with him. We discuss a lot of things. He would laze around and I will ask question about anything I wanted he would answer. It was like he is electronic library. History, novels, languages, mechanics, anything. But when I asked him how he knew so much, he just said that he likes to read books in library. Sometimes I even think that he has read the entire library, bingo. And from the way he behaved with other girls and me, it was different. He is not like the other guys in this school. He didn't treat us different because we are girls and give respect. And nobody knows his past, which makes him an enigma to me, and I have always thought different. To me, he is one big puzzle." Hirano smiled at that. Naruto was an enigma. "Glad I am not the only one who thinks that. But it sounds like you have a small crush on him." "Don't be stupid," Saya said quickly as she turned the other way. She had a blush on her cheeks. How could she not have a thing for him? He would always listen to her babbling, answer her sincerely, and never belittle her behind her back like others. He was always there for her when she needed. He was such a nice guy, a bit lazy, understatement of year, that she needed to solve, and that lead her to liking him. However, those thoughts were put on hold as the door to the room was being banged on by them. Luckily, Hirano was done just as the door burst open and they flooded in, and he managed to shoot them all down with nails. "Gotcha!" he said with an insane smirk. "Hirano?" Saya asked, a bit shocked. It was at that moment that Naruto and Rei decided to move out as well. They were using a nearby hose. Hey, all they had to do was knock them over and so they could fall on their heads and stay dead. It was simple, right? Or Naruto could kill them, but he suggests the first. It was also not time to show his full abilities. They are for emergency. Well, more emergency than this. "Are you ready?" asked Naruto. "Yeah. Turn it on," Naruto ordered. As soon as the water came, he channeled chakra to his feet and be prepared for backlash of the powerful water hose. They were starting to come through, so he needed this thing under control. Just as the pressure came, his balance downed a little, but he quickly recovered, aiming his pipe at the stairs. All of them were blown away where they hit their heads or something. "You see the drill and the nails over there?" Hirano asked as he kept on shooting. "Will you put them in a bag or something?" "Excuse me? You're nobody to me, what makes you think you can order me around?" Saya said, clearly offended. He looked back at her with his killer face, freaking her out, before the face changed into a smile. "Please?" sighed, the pink-haired girl relented. "All right. Here. You hold this bag," Saya ordered her chubby partner before she headed to the door. "Can I ask you something?" Hirano asked. "What?" "Well, why are you with me?" "Why?" Because of Naruto, Saya said arrogantly. Yeah, I can see that. Oh well, Hirano said with sigh, as he should not be surprised. He then straightened up and became serious as he held his nail gun at the ready. Hey, you're on the ball all of a sudden, Saya said with a smile. Something click in you or what? I don't know. But I guess it did, Hirano said excitedly before they rushed out of the room to escape this place. Now let's go and find Naruto. I am sure he had found some other of his friends. Right, Saya agreed. Or he could still be trying to sleep somewhere, he added as an afterthought. Saya's sweat dropped big time, but with their blonde friend, it is still possible. Only he has the guts to sleep at a time like this. She agreed with him at this. With the both of them, they would surely survive this ordeal. Man, it was definitely a great idea to use the fire hose, said Rei in astonishment as all of them were blown completely off the roof from the water. It definitely cut our time short, replied Naruto. His voice and attitude was definitely back to normal. No enthusiasm, no fear, just disinterest. Sometime Rei couldn't help but think if he even considers current condition a threat. I remember what we learned in middle school, Hisashi dash. But her sentence came to an end when she said that. Hisashi was taboo for them, and after remembering such a happy memory, she looked at the ground in sadness while he looks at sky and sighed. Hisashi will always be with us in heart and memory. He wouldn't want us to be worrying about his death at a time like this. Rei nodded at that. Hisashi wouldn't want them to brood over it. It should be fine to get going now, said Rei with Naruto nodding in acknowledgement. It's gonna be a different story inside the building. Are you ready for this? Rei's response was to hold up his sheathed sword. She has always marveled the design of his sword, it's so beautiful. Naruto looked at it for a moment before grabbing it. Their hands briefly made contact when he did. Rei looked at him for a moment, and he stared back, not missing a beat before he slowly turned away with putting sheath on the belt. Let's go. Rei nodded sadly, knowing it was an accident and that he didn't mean to touch her. Earlier he did was to just comfort her. I will make it up to you, Naruto, thought Rei before Naruto ran on ahead, bending low, hands at his sides with left gripping the sword. He was making no sound or any other unwanted thing, just like a ninja, and then beheaded one of them out of the way. They then proceed to the stairs. In the school, Naruto and Rei ran down the stairs as fast as they could. At least for Rei. Where are we going? Asked Rei. Naruto stopped before going down the next flight of stairs to look at Rei. We will find my friends, he said with a lazy smile. And we should go look for other survivors and work together to get out. You are all locals, so you'll figure something out. Yeah, you're right, said Rei happily. At least I know my dad's okay. Oh, you should try calling home as well. Naruto smiled lazily at her, deceptively hiding his pain. I live alone, you forgot? Rei giggled at her mistake. I really forgot, not able to see past his mask. It's not like I have anyone to call to. On the outside, Naruto just chuckled lightly as he always did at her expression, but on the inside was another story. Of course I didn't mean it like that. All I want is at school. Naruto? Asked Rei. He snapped out of his thoughts and looked to see Rei's worried face. I'm fine, Rei, he said with a small smile. She looked at him for a moment before smiling softly. If you say so. By the way, where are we? I don't have any classes in this part of the school, she said, ending in confusion. Naruto looked around too, but unlike Rei, he knew exactly where they were. Well, if he wants a safe sleeping place, he has to explore school first. With that, he starts descending. Come, being closely followed by Rei. And be quiet, they only react to sound. How do you know that? Naruto sighed. I ran among them for 10 minutes before I saved you at roof. How do you think I survive? She blushed in embarrassment and smiled sheepishly. However, he continued, in this situation we need to be insightful and of intellectual thinking. Rei nodded. Her friend's calm demeanor and his thoughts are always awe-inspiring. Saya and Hirano were in one of the school's hallways trying to experiment. Right now, there was only one of them in the hall, and they wanted to see just what their full capabilities were. by throwing a wet rag at them. What are you doing? Hirano asked, looking nervous. Just be quiet and watch, said Saya as she wet another cloth from a water bucket. She then threw the cloth again, only this time she threw it at a locker. The now dead student then walked up to the locker and started to bang on it as if it was trying to get through. You see that? They didn't react when something hit their bodies. Their senses are dead. They only respond to sound, most likely they can't see either. Otherwise they wouldn't bump into the lockers, finished Saya. What about heat? Asked Hirano. I am sure we'll get plenty of opportunities to find out. Let's go, she said after standing up from her position. So are we going outside? Asked Hirano nervously. What are you trying to say? She asked, irritated with the boy. Well, I hate walking, he said with blue lines on his forehead. She turned to him, fully scolding. That's why a chubby geek is so. He cringed. You can say that again, when you are old enough to get driver's license, she said hotly. But she didn't continue because she was staring at more of them closing on them. Another one of them charged at her, only for her to knock it away as if it was nothing. Siko and Shizuka walked briskly through the hall, knocking them away when they got to close. The faculty room? It's going to be a pain to get there. But all the car keys are in that room, said a jogging Shizuka, causing her boobs to bounce. Siko then knocked another one of them away. Why don't you kill them? You can do that easily, can't you? Asked a curious Shizuka. I mean, Siko did kill all the ones in her office, so why is this different? You wouldn't want to stuck at a place just because you want to smash all their heads. They would surround you before you know. Besides, they are unbelievably strong. Once they grab you, it's difficult to get away. Shizuka had a look of amazement and understanding after her explanation. You're amazing, just like Naruto-kun. He too knows everything, she chirped happily. Siko was about to ask how she knew him, but Shizuka then proceeded to take a step forward. Unfortunately, she tripped on a rug that was on the floor, causing several different effects. Her boobs bounced, she fell on her ass, and it was in an erotic position on the floor. Oh no! What was that? Mao, said a flushed Shizuka. What you are wearing isn't exactly made for running, said Siko as she grabbed the bottom of Shizuka's skirt. Shizuka blushed and was about to tell Siko to let go, but it was too late. Siko ripped her skirt all the way up to her hips, showing a little bit of her purple lace panties. Hey, it's an expensive brand, said a now little mad and flushed Shizuka. Siko just sighed and looked at Shizuka. What's more important, clothes or your life? Her answer was a pouting Shizuka, saying, both. Crash. What was that? Asked now scared nurse. Is that from the faculty room? Asked Siko. They started running in that direction while Siko asked, So, how do you know Naruto-kun? Shizuka first stared at her confusedly but then smiled widely. Oh, he is interned for me as school nurse. Siko blinked but has to ask one question. But how do you get that lazy ass help you? She smiled more widely. Oh, it's simple. I let him sleep in my room. Siko's face faltered at that. She stood up while mumbling should have known. With that, she again started running. If you keep shooting them, how will we learn about them? Saya said, having already learned quite a lot. Their senses, except for their hearing, were dead. Please you help me fight them too, Hirano countered. Why do I have to do that? Saya asked loudly. The magazine is almost empty. So what? Why don't you just reload it? Saya shouted. But they're right behind you. See? Hirano said weakly. Saya looked and let out a shrill scream, alerted everyone and everything to their position. That was Saya, but she is one floor down. He knew he would not reach in time if he used stairs. Follow me, he ordered as he starts running in different direction. Ray blinked but also started running. Where are we going? He didn't answer as he suddenly entered an empty class. Ray entered a little later, but he was standing in the middle of the class. Hurry, behind me! She looked confused but complied at hearing his urgent tone. I have done enough of my physical workout. It should be easy even if it is a 3-meter thick concrete. He has made his own version of chakra control, to suppress the chaotic nature of his chakra. He has to spread it in his entire body, while pumping more in the limb he want to attack with and then release at one go at a focal point. But he has to reinforce his muscles and bones too. However, for him, a chakra powerhouse, he can do it for a week while still able to stand. Just as she got behind him, he lifted his leg of the ground while gathering chakra in his whole leg. Here it goes. She took a step back in fear while mumbling. Hi Hirano, said man tried to fire but the magazine is. Saya then took a step back only to trip on the bag of tools she hadn't realized she dropped as her fists bounced lightly. She then backed up to try and get some room between them, but she ended up with her back against a broken trophy case. Looking up in panic, Saya mumbled, Get away! Get away! Takagi! Said Hirano in panic. Stay back! Stay back! Yelled Saya as she threw trophy after trophy, as the dead person, but it had no effect as he kept walking towards her. Just then the room shook, which made the undead stop for a moment for some reason. Suddenly the ceiling at the center of room fell away, forming a dust cloud. Looking around, she couldn't find anything to defend herself with. Just as the dead man opened his mouth to bite her, she saw something at the corner of her eye. She picks up the item, pointing it at the undead, and shouted, Stay back! This is the scene Siko and Shizuka arrived. At first glance it looked like the dead man had gotten Saya, but it was actually the dead man's blood that went flying. Saya was holding a cordless power drill that was currently drilling in the chest of the dead man, who was still trying to move forward. But Siko couldn't do anything from her position, she was too far from where Saya was. But to her surprise, suddenly a figure came out the smoke from the room's center. It was someone she knew too well. As Naruto came out the smoke, he took a glance around the room to analyze. Hirano was alright but Saya, so he moved fast. Saya's face was turned other side as she cried, I can't take it anymore, MOM! She slowly stopped the drill and dared to look up, but to her dismay, the undead face was still intact. She was about to scream again when she saw that head was not moving. Just then, her eyes fall on a lope of blonde and crimson hair. And she knew only one with that type of hair, so she immediately slumped to the ground. Everyone, including Rei, who also has jumped down, was staring at Naruto in shock. He was holding the dead man with only right hand, and the person was struggling to break free but can't from the blonde's vice grip. Naruto has a serious but still bored expression, but his eyes have hardened like that of a veteran warrior. He gazed to the left to see that 3 more undead were at the window. So with one arm he lifted the undead of the ground and threw him at 3 other like a baseball with great strength, which was not a surprise as you take in his Hanyu status. From now on there will be no claim of him being Hanyu except if it is important. He will have guy-like strength. He could break boulders without chakra. The result was something they didn't suspect. Behind the throw was such force that after colliding with the other 3, they were all pushed off their feet and out of the outer window to out of the building. All were little stunned at this display of power. But Naruto didn't stop there as he saw about 7 more undead coming toward them. He put his left hand on the hilt of his blade as he bent down in a low stance with wide legs. Then he seemingly vanished from the sight. Only Siko was able to only see a little blur of him. There was silence for a few seconds. They located Naruto on other side of hall ahead of all undead. Then he flicked his blade like for removing the excess blood and sheathed it in one swift motion with a click sound. He turned around and started coming back towards the group. All of them didn't move, but as Naruto passed the second, blood erupted from their heads from different location. Some were sliced of head parts, other a deep cut in the center, and many more. As he reached the group, all 7 of them fall behind him. Just then Rei came out of her shock as she ran for Saya with Shizuka in tow, who knocked Hirano off her feet with her bouncing fists, asking, Takagi-san, are you okay? Miyamoto, Saya mumbled. Meanwhile Naruto was shutting the door while staring in the distance. Siko came from behind. Naruto asked without turning around, Are you okay, Siko? She smiled. He always know who is where. Yeah. As they moved back to the group, Rei was trying to calm down Saya while Shizuka and Hirano stood at side. Well, Shizuka was spacing out a little. Siko decided to speak. You all know the school Dr. Marikawa, right? And I am Siko Busujima from Class 3A. Miss Busujima, I remember you won the national championship last year with Naruto, where he also caused some fiasco. I'm Rei Miyamoto. I am in the Spear Martial Arts Club. Oh. I am Kota Hirano from Class B, nice to meet you, Siko said with a closed-eye smile, getting aghast from the boy, as he was not used to having hot girls talk to him. And I guess I don't need an introduction. Naruto chuckled. It was at this time that Saya regained some of herself. What was once a normal day became a hellish nightmare. Seeing people die, get betrayed and turned into monsters, she had to let out her pent-up emotions. Why are you guys being so warm and fuzzy? Why are you being so polite to her, Miyamoto? You flunked last year, you are same age, and she is not your elder. What are you talking about, Takagi-san? Hirano asked while Naruto grimaced. He knew what going on. This was what he called the snap for situations like this. He had his in the previous world at age 7. Don't even try to make fool out of me. I am genius, you know, once I put my mind to it, I am invincible. Saya shouted. I'm a. It's okay, that's enough, said a person from behind her as said person put their hand on her shoulder. Snapping out of her crazed state, Saya looked to see who it was only to meet the eyes of concerned Naruto through the mirror. My clothes are all dirty, she said still in a daze. I'll need to have mommy take them to the cleaners, she said in a quiet voice as tears gathered up in the corners of her eyes. She then looked up into Naruto's eyes expecting them to show pity, or even distaste for her being like a little girl. But all she saw was kindness, sincerity, and worry in his half-lidded eyes. Her emotional barriers finally broke as she turned around and buried her head into Naruto's chest. The last straw was when she felt Naruto's arms wrap around her in a comforting embrace. Like a river, tears flowed freely as she clutched onto Naruto like a lifeline. She cried into his chest as if he was her lover trying to console her, as if he was silently telling her everything would be okay. Naruto held her against him, letting her cry her fears and sadness onto his chest. He held her as a close friend who will always be there when she needed it, as he had told her. All the other watched the touching scene, the only sound being made being Saya as she cried her heart out. Naruto just stared out of window and sighed. It will take a little time for her to adjust the idea kill or be killed, but she will understand, she is still a genius after all. After 15 minutes. After everything settled down, they all moved into the main office. This should do it, exclaimed Hirano as he put one more box of textbooks on the desk in front of the door. Siko too wiped some sweat from her forehead. Looking around, she saw the condition of the others. Rei looked ready to collapse. She was breathing a little hard, making her boobs move up and down in tandem with her breathing. She appeared to be on her last leg. She could tell the girl has gone through a lot today. Pain of loss was visible in her eyes, which she tried to hide with a smile and with addition of fatigue. Shizuka appeared to be sitting on a chair as well, except she was using her incredibly large boobs as pillows as she rested on a desk. She might look alright, but Siko could tell she was scared before, but now it's like she has no worries. She didn't know why, but she sure want to feel like that right now. Saya was in the small restroom washing her face free from the blood she had earlier, her boobs swinging back and forth, and she rubbed her face roughly trying to get all the blood out. Then she looked at the last person and sweat dropped largely. Naruto's head was on table, and he was snoring slightly. She reached to him and shaking him awake. Naruto slowly woke up as he looked at Siko, whom folded her arms under her wrists, picking them up a little. He blinked. Naruto-kun, it looks like everyone is out of breath, but why aren't you helping Hirano-kun and me with the barricade? The purple-haired sword mistress asked while rolling her shoulders. Because I was sleeping, he answered lamely in his bored tone. Everyone's sweat dropped, even the head-down Shizuka at their friend's antics. And any other reason? She asked. Naruto sighed. Because it was a waste idea. She blinked. Why? Now everyone was looking at him expectantly for an explanation. You do know that those things are blind. At her nod he continued. You were making noise to which they respond, so in a sense you are calling them here. The barricade is useless because once they heard the sound they will pile up at the door, they will break the door without barricade and will file out in the room one by one, to which we can easily kill. But with barricade and the noises it will attract more and also require more of them to break the barricade, and once they did they will flood the room and there will be no way out. All were staring at him in surprise and awe, but then Hirano asked, "But why didn't you tell us before?" I didn't get enough sleep today, so I was sleeping." All of them hung their heads at their friend's laziness. However, chuckle a little too. Now that they thought about it, what were the odds of them all surviving who are all related to a single person? It just seemed a little too convenient, didn't it? Hirano walked into the restroom and saw Takagi still washing her face. Concerned, he asked, a bit hesitantly, "Takagi-san, are you okay?" He was surprised though when Saya lifted up her head and put on a pair of glasses that gave Saya that sexy librarian look. "G-glasses?" She turned to him while throwing towel at him, aggravated. "So what? My contact lenses keep moving." With that she walked past him. While he stood there, as towel fall from his face with a blissful look on his face, mumbled, "Glasses." "Naruto," said Rei. Looking to her, he sees her with a bottle of water extended towards him. Smiling lazily, Naruto said with a yawn, "Thanks." "Where's your car keys?" asked Siko to Shizuka. Looking up after her short rest, she began to look for them. "They're in my bag." Naruto sighed and asked sweetly, "Shizuka-chan, do you think your little beetle will hold us all?" All girls first stare at Shizuka in well-hidden jealousy, then looked at Naruto. As they thought same thing, he never called me like that. Hirano's sweat dropped at the girls who were trying to lift their stare somewhat glare from the nurse's head. "Well, now you think about it," said an embarrassed Shizuka, as she thought of her beetle Volkswagen with the sweat drop, seemingly oblivious of everything. After catching on to Shizuka's dilemma, Siko asked, "What about the microbuses we use for the club's away games? The key for those are on the hangar." "I see the bus," said Hirano after looking out the window. "Sure, they'll work," said Naruto after he took a drink of water. "But where are we headed?" asked the curious Shizuka. "Don't you guys need to check up on your families?" asked Naruto before continuing, seeing that he had everyone's attention. They all looked at each other and nodded. "We'll start off with the closest house, and we'll help the families if they're in trouble. Then we'll find somewhere safe." "What's wrong?" asked Saya as she saw Rei looking at the TV. "What is this?" asked the petrified Rei as she looked at the TV. Grabbing the remote, Siko turned up the volume on the TV to hear what is happening. Naruto too stood up and walked towards them. The government has begun to consider emergency measures against the outbreaks that have been occurring all over the place. How all the political parties have been expressing their uncertainty. "Well, they are faster than I thought," Naruto drawled. "However, we are unsure of the state of the SDF's defensive." At this point, Siko changed it to another news channel. At the moment it was doing live coverage by a newswoman with police and firefighters in the background as they put body bags on stretchers. It's been feared that more than 10,000 have been victimized in the Saitama areas. For the governor has already gunshots. Has already declared a state of emergency and requested the emergency disaster relief. It's a gunshot. It seems that the police are finally using firearms. From what I can see here, no. The camera fell over and they escaped them. And no, let go. Help. Ayaha. The camera then fell to the floor. The last piece of footage being shot before it was cut off was a bleeding leg being dragged away. All the others could do was look at the TV in shock and fear after what they had just seen, except Naruto, who sighed. "Well, at least we get the news." All heads snapped at him with incredulous expression. "What?" He shrugged. "You forgot. We came down from the roof. Entire city is visible from there." So they out. The channel was then brought back to the news studios where another newswoman began to read from more reports. "There's been some sort of problem. From now on, we'll be broadcasting from the studio here. As you can tell, the situation outside has become grave. We advise you please stay in your home unless necessary. Once it's safer outside, we'll bring you information about the ongoing situation." "That's all? Why aren't they saying more?" asked Hirano. "Because they're afraid of causing panic," said Saya with a frown. "Even now?" asked Rei. "Because of what just happened now. said Saya as the others stared at her as she pushed her classes up. Fear leads to chaos. Chaos leads to anarchy? How would you expect the government to deal with the living dead in a time of anarchy? Said Saya as grabbed the remote from the table and started to change it to another channels. This unusual phenomenon has spread throughout America and has yet to be brought under control. The government authorities have evacuated the White House and will relocate to a command center on board an aircraft carrier. There are reports that this transfer is in preparation for the possible use of tactical warheads. We have currently lost contact with Moscow. Beijing has been set ablaze, London has maintained order, but in Paris and Rome, there are reports of looting. Government officials have declared, The signal was cut off again. So, they are everywhere. Naruto sighed as they saw a picture of the White House, where the disease was said to originate, in America. Well, lucky us, he finished with a chuckle. But how? Hirano said. Everything was normal when I checked the internet this morning. Ray started mumbling. I can't believe that it took only a few hours for this world to come to this. Don't you feel the same? There must be someplace safe, right? Trying to reassure herself more than anything, she unconsciously grabbed a hold of Naruto's sleeves for a few seconds. Everything is going to go back to normal, right? That's not going to happen, Saya stated bluntly. You don't have to be so blunt about it, you know? Naruto deadpanned. This is a pandemic. There's nothing we can do, Saya said defensively. Oh, a pandemic, Shizuka said worriedly. It's when an epidemic of infectious disease spread. The entire world is experiencing the same outbreak. You mean like influenza? Hirano offered. I don't think this could have happened by accident. Naruto thought aloud to himself as to what it all could be. Stuff like this doesn't happen in a matter of minutes, or even hours. As he rested his cheek on his fist. This is exactly like the Spanish flu in 1918, Saya said to herself aloud. More than 600 million got infected and 50 million died from it. Think about recently when there was a new type of influenza that had people worried. Isn't this more like the Black Death from the 14th century? Shizuka replied, making the all sweat drop while Naruto chuckled lightly. He was immune of her antics by now. They had learned about that, and it was as scary. 1/3 of the European population died during that, Saya commented. So how did the outbreak finally end? Ray asked quietly. Well, there are many theories, but, Shizuka replied. The reason why diseases like those die is because they killed so many, that there's not enough people left to spread the disease. But in this case, dead are moving around and attacking people, Hirano replied as he looked out the window. Siko asked. Then you are implying it has no reason to stop spreading? This was when Shizuka had a thought and turned to Naruto sharply, causing her boobs to jiggle again. It's hot outside. Maybe their flesh will start decomposing and they won't be able to move, she said like it was the best idea ever. And what is the duration of this process? Asked Siko. Well, during summer, it takes around 22 days for some body parts to decompose. And during winter, it can take months, anyway, if we go to our homes dash. But she was cut off. How do we know they'll even start to decompose? Said Saya as she walked to the window and looked outside. Why do you say that? Asked Siko. Don't these things defy our knowledge of medicine? So why bother relying on it? It could be hopeless. Just how long? What is important is having a location to make use of after we check on our families. Should we act only in our own self-interest, we won't stand a chance out there, said Siko. Sai, if we want to survive this. All turned to him. We must have to be a team that could trust one of others with their life if need be. He ended as he looked at them with a serious expression, maintaining his half-lidded eyes. They don't know how he does that. At seeing him with such an expression, the girls felt a shudder of something go down their spine. What was that? The girls thought at once. Also, we should help survivors if possible as well. While adding to a group would be a bad idea in this situation, saving innocent lives will help us maintain our mentality. Why do you say that? Asked Hirano, now scared. Naruto sighed. Human psychology is very complicated. When we continue in these kinds of situations, we slowly become used to it. We start believing that it will always be like this, which is not a good thing, so if we do things we thought to be right compared to our previous feelings and thoughts, we can easily pull through this, and friends and trust help a lot in this case. He finished standing up and moving for the water bottle again. His throat felt dry. All others stared at him in stunned silence. They knew he was smart, but WTF. Now he was talking like a war hawk. Of course. He continued again, gaining their attention. We need to be careful of who we meet out there. We all know each other somewhat, and I am the main connecting link to all, so we can trust everyone in this room. But everyone else, though, is a possible threat. He said again, with the girls agreeing again on his suggestion. He finished his little speech. How do we get out? Asked Ray. The front door is closest to the parking lot, answered Saya. Let's go! Saya exclaimed, causing the girls and Hirano to get ready. Just as they took a step forward to the blocked door, they were interrupted. And where do you think you're going? Asked Naruto as he lazily sat on a chair finishing his bottled water. This had the reaction of all the people to face fall to the floor, making their boobs bounce but also exposing their undergarments to Naruto. They quickly got up after that, but the quick glimpse was enough for Naruto's photographic memory. My, looks like it's a lucky day for you, Kurama, my perverted fox, thought Naruto as he stares at their fallen forms for a split second. There was an unvigilant reply. Hey! What was that supposed to mean? Oh, you want to see? He asked as he sent mental images of few of the scenes that happened today. Then he heard a perverted giggle in his head. I think it is. Naruto just chuckled. Hey, it may be a zombie apocalypse, but he is still a guy and have to have boys talk, and being alone with 4 sexy girls will do that to you. What's the holdup, Naruto? We should get going now while we still have light outside, said a frustrated Saya. Naruto gazed at them, then sighed. You are still not completely thinking with your head. Huh, was his response from all. He sighed. What are they, kids? They really are kids. Yes, what you said is true, but are you ready to go out there? We just got in here 15 minutes ago. Are you ready, both mentally and physically, to go out there and do what needs to be done to survive? Asked Naruto as he looked at them. At this, they all stopped and realized that they were still a little shaken about the whole situation. Naruto-kun is right. If we go out now, we have a low chance on even making it, said a bitter Siko for being brash and reckless. The other girls stopped for a moment and realized that they too were still too out of it to go out yet. Seeing that they finally got the idea, Naruto said, Let's wait for at least 30 minutes before we go. That should be enough time for yous to get enough rest. Seeing the girls nod and calm down, Naruto leaned back in his chair to try go back to sleep but was interrupted. Hey Naruto, I was wondering, how is it that you know so much on this? I mean, like, all of the actions we have been making are your suggestions, but how do you know what to do? Asked Hirano timidly, thinking his friend might feel offended. At this, all of the girls looked to Naruto waiting for an explanation. Naruto looked at them and saw them waiting, so he smiled lazily and said, Like I told you before, I came from town of ancient warriors. My family also was one of those war families, and it's a tradition to continue their legacy. They all listened intently. Simple as that. I have been given combat training since I was 4. These type of situation also came under it. They didn't hear rest of the sentence. All it was ringing in their heads since 4. He wouldn't even knew how to talk. While Siko since 4. No doubt he is so much better than me. They were quiet for another 10 minutes, just trying to get a grasp on the new idea. Oh! Now I remembered what I was forgetting, said Naruto suddenly. They all looked at him expectantly. He brought out his Naruto's handbook from his jacket. They all looked a little confused, but when they read the title. Hey Naruto, isn't that the notebook you mostly carry with you? Hirano asked while Naruto nodded. Now they all remembered. He always has this notebook with seemingly thick and best quality paper. He would sit somewhere while doing something in it with a brush and homemade ink like some scholar. All slowly surrounded him as he flipped through pages. They saw that he has some different type of designs and marking and kanjis. He finally stopped at a page. Then bit his thumb, smearing at the page. This action caught them off guard. What's the reason to draw the design if you will spill blood on it? But to their shock and surprise, the design glowed light blue. The notebook was surrounded by smoke, but when the smoke cleared, all their jaws hit the floor. There over the notebook was a black metallic bow staff with silver ends. There are reinforcement seals drawn all over it for strengthening. It was almost unbreakable. He picked it up and tosses it to Rei, who caught it out of reflex. She looked questioningly at Naruto. There is a button near one corner, push it. She looked it over and found the button on the lower side. As she pressed it, suddenly a blade spiked out from the upper end. Whoa! Mumbled Rei, as she examined the weapon. He said, I was trained in weapons too, so when I came here I found a weapon shop, so I give few orders for these weapons of my own design. They nodded at his explanation, but a question popped in everyone's mind but one vocaled it. How did you do that? Asked Saya. Do what? That popping thing. Oh, this is called the art of sealing. Art of sealing? Siko repeated in confusion. He nodded. In past it was said to be the quite famous and incredibly hard to master, and my clan was quite feared because of their mastery of this art. What can you do with this art? Asked Saya. Sealing have theoretically no limits. No limits. They almost just yelled in disbelief. He nodded. Yeah, from what I read, it can even surpass current technology. They stared at him in disbelief. There's said to be a man who could teleport from one place to another by using seals as a landmark, artificial personality, explosions, storage space, heat producing, even electricity producing. You are joking, right? Asked Saya. Naruto shook his head. I just showed you one of them, this array. He gestured towards the notebook. That is a seal for storage space. To put it simply, this seal helped me to open a dimensional pocket where I can store almost anything, but size and mass still matters. Impossible, mumbled Saya. Naruto sighed. So, how do you think I brought the bow staff? From under the table. All sweat drop a little at that crack. The staff has reinforcement seals on it. It is almost unbreakable. But, they again listened. There is a requirement for this to work, he said. And that is? Siko questioned. It was interesting, and she always wants to know about him. Well, everyone wants to know. At this, Naruto folded his arms with a serious look, said, That's a secret. At this, all of them face faulted again. They all quickly stood up, glaring at him, which he easily ignored. It's clan secret. I will tell you some other time, he replied to at least satisfy them. While they wanted to know, they knew he has some family restrictions too. So for now they will put rest, but they were determined to get the answers they wanted. He then again flipped few pages, again wiped blood. This time there was a small puff of smoke and pouches of brown color appeared. He opened one and brought out 2 kunais. They want to question him but put hold. He was popping out many weird things today, so he signaled for Saya and Shizuka as they came near him. He gave each of them one. Put them somewhere on yourself. If no help arrives, use it to stall for time. Stab them with it precisely in the eye. Both looked a little freaked out but nodded as they saw his serious gaze. He was not up for argument. Then he turned to Hirano and nodded at seeing he has his weapon. Said boy also nodded. Then he turned to Siko. Siko, are you all right with that wooden sword? For now I am. She replied with a smile, glad he has asked her. As they adjust themselves, he put his notebook back in his jacket. Guys! They all looked to him and saw he was serious. Are you almost ready? They understood what he meant. If they leave now, there is no telling when they will get to rest again. The world is in chaos, and the chance of them getting to rest will be slim to none. But they knew they could not just stay here and wait for it all to end. Therefore, they all nodded at him. Good. We will take a formation so that it will be easier for us to go. I will take the front with Siko on left and clear the path, Shizuka Saya behind us in the center, as both of you has the least fighting experience. Rei with Hirano rear left and right cover the back and anyone if we miss. Is this okay? All quickly thought it over and nodded at his suggestion. All right, and be quiet everyone. They all nodded. Naruto then moved all the furniture blocking the door and grabbed the door handle. Let's go! Naruto quickly opened the door, causing some of them to look their way. Hirano then shot them with the nail gun just as they started to move. They then ran out of the door and into the chaos once more. He quickly unsheathed his sword, this time in his right hand. He has to clear the path, so preciseness will not work. He need power to blow them away from their way. They soon were almost, but far from the bus. It was on another part of the schoolyard. Just to confirm it. You need not begin fighting unless it is inevitable. Refrain from fighting when opportunity arises. Siko informed them, but she knew Naruto wouldn't have any problems. Remember, they're sensitive to sound, so keep it quiet. Saya offered her observations. Additionally, they are strong enough to break down a normal door, and once they have a hold on you, you are going to get eaten, so be careful. As they made their way to an outside bridge, they heard a scream. On a walkway underneath them, a group of 5 students. 3 average-looking guys and 2 girls. One of the girls, Naomi, said her boyfriend's name in fright. Takuzo has black hair and brown. He wore the normal school uniform. He also has a sports towel hanging around his neck. Naruto, as he saw they were being cornered by them, so he ordered Hirano to take it out. Shoot it, Naruto said quietly. Right, Hirano said as he shot his nail gun at it, and it slumped to the ground, something Takuzo was extremely grateful for as he relaxed somewhat. Naruto signaled for Siko to engage, which she did by jumping over the railing while he used the stairs while Rei take out from below, while Hirano stayed up for long range as well, protecting the other 2. They take them out as they went. The rest of the group not far behind. Thank you, the girl, Naomi, said loudly. Not too loud, Siko said softly as well. Is there a person among you with a bite? What? No, no one, Naomi replied. They really do look fine, Rei said happily. Naruto walked down lazily to them, not even in any hurry, and said, We're getting out of there. Want to come with us? Naruto said in a bored tone. The new group's sweat dropped at this while their group was already used to it. Why yes, she replied nervously. Takuzo's eyes widened when he saw Naruto. He had actually seen Naruto fight at last kendo tournament, and had to admit that Naruto was more than good. He felt safer already. He had his group nodded as they then made their way to the front building. Now was the time to leave this place. The large group made their way to the front of the building, and now they were once again in a stairwell, only, this one led to their freedom from this place. All they had to do was get past the Walking Dead down below. Easy, right? There are a bunch of them down there, said Naruto, leaning on the railing, closing his eyes. What's the point of hiding here? They use their ears, not their eyes, said Asaya. Then why don't you prove that for us, Takagi? Said Rei, to which Saya deflated. Regardless, if we remain inside of the school as such, we will be unable to move once attacked, said Siko. No way out but through the gate, huh? Stated Rei. Said, not wanting to stay there anymore. We require someone to validify the truth behind Takagi's words, said Siko. Naruto opened one eye, looked out from the corner of his eye, and saw how everyone, including Siko, was nervous about going down there. He chuckled lightly as he pushed of the railing. I'll go, as he starts descending the stairs. The others were startled by his exclamation. Rei then shook her head. No, Naruto, It would be more preferable if I were to go ahead of you, said Siko, cutting off Rei just as Naruto came by her side. He stopped and turned slightly to stare at her lazily. He then brought his hand up in front of her face. She knew what was coming next. Then he flicked her nose like he always do when he was little, amused at something she said or did, as she closed her eyes out of reflex. There was a blush present on her face due to embarrassment, as well as because of contact. But she didn't have it in her to stop Naruto. All other looked surprised while Rei, Saya slightly jealous while Shizuka smiled at their friendship. Even she knows how all girls feel about blonde. No, you both should stay back in case something happens, Rei, Siko, he said with a yawn. They are now getting aggravated with his laziness. Didn't he consider this situation a threat? But why, Naruto? Said Rei as she was scared of losing another friend. Naruto then looked at all of them with a lazy smile. Why? Maybe I am waiting for something to happen. This only increased their worries. He waved a hand dismissively. Don't worry, I have better reflexes than Siko, I will be fine. Said girl puffed her cheeks secretly, but Naruto noticed as he chuckled lightly. Naruto then proceeded to walk down the stairs to the undead, while slowly drawing his sword and putting it at his shoulder. Rei then reached out to him. Naruto, wait! She was then stopped by Siko. I understand how you feel. Regardless, this decision was made by no one but himself, said Siko as she looked at Naruto in worry. The group, mostly the girls, all looking on in worry for their friend as he made it to the bottom of the stairs and continued walking to almost center. As he stopped by a shoe, his sword still plopped over his shoulder. He just stands there bored. The first thing he has done when he met one of them was to get insight about the enemy. He instantly summarized from their glaze over and unfocused look that they are blind or have poor eyesight. Next thing he observes was that they keep bumping into wall or other things, which make him conclude that their senses are dead. Lastly, he also noticed that they react to sound of whatever it is. As he stands there, one of them moved toward him by coincidence, but he sidestepped slightly, and so it just walked on by him. Okay, they are blind. First theory proved. He saw a shoe near his leg, so with his right foot he hoisted it up, grabbing with his left hand. All stared at him, tense, ready to act any moment. He thought of pranking them but dropped that idea. It's no time for silly jokes. Even if didn't show it, he knew it was a serious situation. Alone he could survive easily, but now he has responsibility, so he has to act a little more attentive. Looks like cannot do. He then lazily throws the shoe at the lockers, which connect and made a sound. Suddenly all the undead turn towards the sound, start making way over there. While he lazily waved his hand to signal them to descend as he moved to the gates and opened them with Siko, who arrived at the other side. As they were finally leaving the building, Tezuko, student they picked up, who was rather slow, had his weapon accidentally tapped the railing for the stairwell. It echoed rather loudly. Naruto just sighed while Siko looked little afraid. Time seemed to have stopped. Everyone turned to look at Takuzo just as the undead started to swarm. Naomi then yelled, "Run, Takuzo!" He then saw all of the undead stop what they were doing before and then converge to their spot. The group they picked up didn't need to be told twice. They were gone before anyone could say anything. "Why did you open your mouth?" Saya shouted. "We could have made it by taking care of the ones close by if you hadn't said anything." However, one of them appears behind the pink-haired girl. Luckily, Siko bashed it away. "No way! Didn't you hear that echo?" Rei said, as she cut one's leg with her new bow staff. Hirano was at front trying to take aim at all the ones near them and said, "There are more of them." Just then, Naruto ran past him, with a lazy grin plastered on his face. He reached the first and does an upward diagonal swing at its neck. Its head shot in the air. He came at another one with downward slash, separate its head and upper body into two the waist. Plunging his sword in the third's mouth, then bringing it upward, cleaving the head. They were two in front of him. He gathered wind chakra around his blade, but instead of sharpening it, he let it revolve around the blade. He revolved once while muttering, "Uzumaki Kenjutsu Kaze no Hage Shiai, Uzumaki style violent winds." As he stuck the first, all the wind chakra that was gathered was launched towards the enemies. They were blown off the bridge. He slowly stands up straight, flicking his sword to remove the blood. In the meantime they were stunned. He has just wiped out about 15 of them with looking rather easy. Now they were worried for their friend's sanity. But when he turned to them, he was back to his lazy self. He said, "I said that, we will make it, and you all know I didn't break my promises." They all smiled. This is one of his qualities. So, previous formation, run. After they formed formation, they again start running. It took them a while, but they finally made it to the parking lot. They all ran in their formation to the bus as Naruto and Siko beat most of the undead out of the way. Though that didn't mean that Rei and Hirano didn't do anything, as both of them knocked any of the undead that tried to get them from behind. Unfortunately, Takuzo got surrounded and was getting eaten by them. Naomi saw this and he yelled, "Takuzo!" Despite him being eaten alive, he looked to them and yelled, "Naomi! Run!" Takuzo forgets him, said Saya as she grabbed the girl and tried to pull her back. There's no point in trying to save him if he's already been bitten. But the girl didn't listen and ran off to the boy. "Why?" asked Saya in shock. I told her it was useless. Why is she going back for him? I understand, said Shizuka as she slowly took steps back. With the whole world gone to hell, I'd much rather die with the one I love, she said as tears gathered in her eyes. What kind of doctor are dash? Saya was interrupted by one of them being shot before it could bite her. Calm down, Takagi-san, said Hirano as she shot another one that got to close. Oh, you rude little otaku! How dare you interrupt me while I am taking? Why would you do that? Simple, you Naruto's friend, so I'd like to think of you as a friend as well. Can't you die on me? Hirano said. Nice to see that you two are getting along, Siko stated when she saw that Saya had a small blush on her face. However, she didn't know why. One was attacking Shizuka when Naruto hit him at the temple with the blunt side of his blade, which sent it flying away. They can't understand how he could produce such force with a blade and not slice. In real, Naruto has layered his blade with chakra, so with the blunt side he used chakra to propel plus kill the enemy. Naruto looked at Shizuka, seeing that she is scared. He called out to her, Shizuka-chan, the key. At this, she opened the door and all of them ran into the bus. Hirano opened a window and took aim. Target? Check. Public safety? Check. Ready to rock and roll? Saya looked at him and said, Oh, hurry up and just shoot them already. Shizuka turned on the bus but was in a panic, her boobs jiggle as she did so. This isn't like my car. The gas, the brake, the clutch. Naruto and Siko were still outside the bus when they both noticed something troubling. There were too many of them near the school exit. Even with a large bus, if they were to try to drive through all of them, then it could cause the bus to flip over. Siko, said Naruto, as he ran hand through his hair. He continued when she looked toward him. I'm going to clear a path for everyone, okay? Get in the bus and tell everyone to get ready. He drawled out. Siko looked at him as if he was crazy and voiced her opinion. But Naruto-kun, there are too many of them there. You will get eaten if you get swarmed by that many of them. Naruto just smiled lazily and said, Don't worry about me. I need you to make sure everyone gets out of here alive. I promise, I'll be fine. Without waiting for her to reply, Naruto started jogging, then broke into a run, off to clear the path for them while muttering too less time for sleep. Before she could try and go after him, she heard a cry. Help us! Looking back to the school, she saw a group of people running to them. In the group were nothing but students and one teacher. She didn't recognize any of the students, but she did recognize the teacher. It being Koichi Shido. Shido is wearing a black pinstripe suit. Inside the suit, he wears a white dress shirt along with a yellow tie. He also wears black framed glasses. He has black hair that is neatly combed and parted at both sides of his face. But his eyes, his yellow eyes, put Siko on edge. She knows that there is something wrong with him. She has seen it since she first saw him. Naruto too doesn't like him. He never attended his class. Shido many times tries to expel or even insult him in public, but Naruto just turned his game back on him, making him look like a fool. He was even there when Hirano was bullied but was standing aside enjoying the show. Rei happened to see him too. Shizuka, come on! We have to go! Yelled Rei. Though it wasn't because of them. She just wanted to leave Shido to die. It won't start, Rei! Yelled Shizuka back as she tried to start the bus, but it wouldn't start for some reason. Siko was about to say something before she heard a yell from Shido's group. Shido's group a minute before. Shido was glad that the other group noticed them. He doesn't know how much longer he will be able to keep running. Come on, just a little further, he thought as he loosened his tie so he could breathe a little easier. Quickly turning, he addressed his group. Everyone! Hurry! I guarantee you'll make it out alive! The other students quickly ran past him, one girl saying, Okay, teacher, as she went by. Despite what I said, I wonder if they'll even make it to the bus, thought Shido with a demented gleam in his eye. One student that was in the back of the group was running with a journal and some textbooks for some reason. He suddenly tripped and rolled on the ground to Shido's feet. He reached up and grabbed onto his pants. I sprained my ankle, he said in pain. Oh, said Shido, sounding caring. Is that so? He then had a happy look on his face. Then it's the end of the line for you. Just as he finished saying that, he picked up his leg and kicked that student right in the face, breaking the student's glasses on his face, breaking his nose, and knocked a few teeth out, causing blood to fly and the student to cry in agony. The world as we knew it has come to an end. In this world, he trailed off as he turned to the student with an insane look. It's the survival of the fittest. Shido just calmly walked away from the student, whose cries of pain alerted the attention of a few of them closest to him. His cries of pain increased as he was eaten alive. Now, Shido quickly ushered in the students and Siko before she could say anything about Naruto still being out there. Slam! Exclamation point! Yelled Shido as he saw some of them nearing the bus. It was by this point that the bus finally started. Finally! We're off! Yelled Shizuka as she slammed her foot on the gas. To the gate, said a student from Shido's group. I know! Yelled Shizuka as she hit a few of them with the bus. They're not humans, she muttered. They're not humans anymore, she yelled as she stepped on the gas more. It was by this point that they noticed something. There was originally a whole mob full of them by the gate. Now there was only a few dozen. Look! Yelled someone from Shido's group. School greenhouse that once looked like a safe haven when they first saw it on the way to the bus. Now they can't even look in it because nearly all the glass on the inside was covered in blood. It was by this point that they saw Naruto run out from what was possibly the back door of the greenhouse to the school gate that was locked by a huge lock with chains and being hovered by dozens of them. He was covered in blood, which was certainly not his own, but to their horror he didn't stop. He ran straight towards them. Holding his blade hilt ready to draw with his right hand, he spun to the right while running and muttered, Uzumaki Kenjutsu Kaze no Heishiai, Uzumaki style violent wince. They saw in awe as most of them was literally blown away from the gate to the side or was struck to the greenhouse, breaking its glasses as bodies fall out of the broken glass. He then turned around and moved for the gate. They were about to yell for him to move, only for, to their shock, that he swung down his red blade and cut through the chains like they were made of paper and quickly opened the gate. Thinking fast, Shizuka pulled the lever to open the bus door despite Shido's yell to keep it closed. Just as they passed the gate and turned to the left, Naruto quickly jumped on the bus and grabbed onto the door at the sudden jolt he felt from suddenly going at such speed. Shizuka closed the door and quickly turned to the right to avoid going into the main roads. At least for now. Though Naruto was still standing, so with the sudden turn he was unprepared and instead landed on top of Siko, who was sitting in the front seat for the time being. Naruto groaned while muttering something, which makes her vibrate a little. Siko blushed as his head landed on her fists, and his voice causes her stifle a moan. No one noticed this though, as they were too busy relaxing after barely making it out of there. Looks like we made it, whispered Naruto. Yeah, said Siko as she hugged him close to her, making Naruto sigh in relief or pleasure, she don't know. She had seen the look when he was killing those things. It seems like his eyes were dead, and not even his usual apathy was visible. Sorry, Naruto muttered as he slowly stood up. She looked at him questioningly at his half-bloodied face. Naruto pointed at her dress. She looked down and saw the blood from Naruto's face was wiped on front of her dress. She blushed a little but smiled. He always was a gentleman. Always so caring, even in a situation like this. Naruto sighed as he rubbed his hair as dry blood fall on the floor. How the blood dry so quickly? Well, he is hot just like that. He then plopped down and seat next to Rei, handing her his blade as she gave him a towel to wipe his face. He muttered thanks, to which she smiled happily. He sighed. Now I can sleep a little. Rei giggled at his antics. How can he be so calm at a situation like this? Nobody knows. He closed his eyes to take a little nap, that's what other thought. But he was a little tired mentally and physically both. It was about 20 minutes later. Thank you for saving us, said Shido as he walked to the front of the bus. He then looked to Siko. Are you the leader, Bisujima? He asked with a gleam in his eye. Siko just smirked and said, No. Shido's face looked insane as he said, Well, that's no good. A leader is required in order for us to survive. He trailed off as everyone, minus Shizuka and Naruto for obvious reason, looked at him. He smiled and continues. One who manages everything. He was grinning by this time. Ray got close to Naruto's ear. We are going to regret this. Naruto popped open his left eye, then muttered. Don't worry, if he tries something, I will get rid of him. What? She asked, flabbergasted with little anticipation. Naruto smiled lazily. What, it's the least I can do for you, Ray-chan. She blushed profusely as he added chan in seductive tone. She blabbered incoherently, he just chuckled. She turned away with puffed cheeks. I know, he was messing with me. Then she remembered something like, he used to do, before me and Hisashi. Another realization dawned on her. He became distant to her. But he was opening again, albeit slowly. Naruto has again closed his eyes. But his speech was interrupted by one of the Shido's group yelling. The city! Everyone looked out and saw it. The city was in ruin. Houses hit by cars, buildings on fire, the setting sun in the horizon giving everyone a vision as if they were looking into hell. Some time later, music could be heard from a place called Seven Sun Station, as a yellow car drove away just as one of them staggered onto the road to the station. In the station was a single employee seemingly staring out into space as if he was in high. Through the window, you can see the undead person slowly make their way to the station, but was stopped as a minibus ran it over on the way to the city. With everyone on the bus. Look, said one of the students Shido came with. We'll never make it if we keep going. First, why do we need to do whatever you guys planned to do? You all decided to go back to the city without asking us. Couldn't we have just looked for a safe place inside the school? Finished the guy. As he was saying this, everyone from Naruto's group looked like they wanted to say something to him mid-sentence, but a look from Naruto's half-lidded eyes stopped them. He then slowly shook his head as if telling them he would deal with this. They all stopped reluctantly, no sound coming from them except when Shizuka adjusted her seat belt because of the way it felt on her bust. He's right. We should find a place to hide, like that convenience store we just passed by, said a rather sick-looking kid. Despite what Naruto signaled, Shizuka couldn't take it anymore. She slammed on the brakes and parked the bus in the middle of the street. She unbuckled her seatbelt, stood up and yelled at the kid. I've had it. I can't drive with all of you yelling. She ended with a huff, making her freeze sway a bit. What the hell? Muttered Tsunoda, a little surprised. Shizuka finally calmed a little, then looked to Naruto out of the corner of her eye. She was relieved to see him chuckle at her expense, as if to tell her that it was okay, even if unexpected. Then what do you want to do? Asked Siko. He looked at Naruto with hatred. I can't stand this guy. Jeez! Koda growled out and was about to shoot him if he tried anything, but Saya stopped him. Oh. Naruto opened his eyes, still looking bored, then stared at the boy confusingly. Did you say something? Said boy face fault, while Shido's group have sweat drops at the blonde's presence of mind, or absence, while Naruto's group snickered. They just love his antics when they are not directed at them. Siko giggled a little, Hirano's shoulders were shaking, and Saya was trying to school her face but still was shaking a little. Ray was too, snickering as the boy also has stood up. But Naruto was just sitting there, his head tilted to the side to gaze over his shoulder at the boy. You! He said, raising his fist to strike Naruto. But Ray whacked him in the gut with the side of her new spear, dropping him in the ground in a heap. You suck, Ray stated, heaving for breath. Ray just loved this new bow staff. It's perfect in every way, weight, length, design as well quality. Clapping was then heard as Shido walked up to them. Bravo! Simply outstanding teamwork. I'm impressed. I commend both of you. Naruto's eyes suddenly hardened, his group noticed but didn't say anything. But the fact that this conflict arose simply proves what I stated earlier, Shido stated with a slight hiss in his voice. We really do need a leader. Do you understand? He ended with a demented gleam that Naruto saw as clear as day. Saya then adjusted her glasses while looking at Shido. And there's only one person who can do the job, she said with sarcasm. Shido leaned down and said, Well, Takagi, I'm a teacher and the rest of you are students. That alone should be enough to say who's more qualified. He ended with a fake happy tone. If I was the leader, I would prevent conflict. What do you say? He ended while looking at everyone. To the pity of Naruto and the others, a few among the large group of students Shido brought stood up and clapped with approval. Shido then gave an exaggerated bow while turning to Naruto and his group saying, "Well, that's that. I've become the leader based on a majority vote." At this, Rei was shaking and wanted to just up and leave, but she and all the others celebrating stopped at the sound of Naruto's chuckle. Which was also a mystery that how they listened his chuckle through all the clapping. After a while, he stopped and looked at Shido with an amused lazy smile on his face. "Wow, that was funny. I never took you to be the joking type, Shido-kun," Naruto said with a chuckle. Shido's face became a face of rage before he schooled his features. "I wasn't joking, Naruto." Naruto's amused face tells his group something they will enjoy. "You just said you should be leader because you are a teacher," said man smirked. "But I never attend your class, so I am not your student, which means I am out of your reach," he said with lazy glee. "Oh? And that is a problem?" Shido asked, amused only for it to turn into rage again, at what Siko said next. "That is a problem because Naruto is the leader of our group." The boys on Shido's side started to argue while the girls stayed quiet. "Quiet," said Naruto in a commanding tone, no trace of laziness. Off to the side, all the girls on Naruto's side felt a shiver went down their spine. There it was again. What was that? Was the thoughts of all the girls with him. "Now where to begin?" said Naruto, ran a hand through his hair. Then he picked up his sword. "Let me tell you a little story. We don't have TI dash." Shido was cut off as he fell to his knees when Naruto released a concentrated amount of Ki on him. Shido's group was also feeling it quite much, others felt it too. What is this feeling of dread? Thought all as they stare at the blonde who was emanating it. "Now, will you listen?" he asked, smiling sickly. Shido's group couldn't say anything, so nodded furiously. "Good. This?" He gestured to his blade. His group also listened intently. They all admired the blade. "It's really beautiful." Even Shizuka was listening intently. They would not miss a chance to learn about their blonde. "Is a family heirloom, which is present in our family for centuries," he said as he stares at the blade lovingly. But Siko was thinking something else. For centuries. But that blade look almost new. To her luck. "But it looks almost new?" asked Hirano, now extremely interested. Naruto nodded. "That's because it's a sentimental sword." They all were stunned at this commitment. "Why, you mean that sword has a spirit in it?" asked Rei, stammering. "Yes, her name is Benihime," said Naruto quietly, as he unsheathes a little to show dark crimson blade. "See Crimson Princess?" asked Saya, still a little skeptical. "Yes, you know she carves for blood." At this everyone's blood ran cold. "BB blood," stammered Shido. Naruto chuckled, then sighed. "Yes, she uses the iron present in blood to repair herself." Saya's eyes widened at this phenomena. "But," he continued, as they gave him his undying attention, "as any other girl," he gestured to the girls around, "she also always wants to look beautiful." Males stare at him with incredulous expression, while girls nodded in agreement. "So I has to feed her a lot, and I haven't done that in about a week." Sweat was forming on Shido's group males. Shido was sweating like a pig. "Well, Shido-kun, wouldn't you help a girl with her problems like an honorable man like you should do?" "WWLI," Shido stammered as Naruto completely unsheathed his sword and calmly walked towards Shido, slowly, a crazed grin coming at his face. Shido backstepped while Tsunoda too crawled back in obvious fear. When he finally sat at the last seat, staring wide-eyed at Naruto, Blonde pointed the sword at his throat. A single drop of dark red blood came out. But what they saw next really scared them shitless. Just as the red blade touched the drop of blood, it vanished, seemingly absorbed by the blade. Naruto then smirked and slowly backed off. "Well then, now story is finished, I will talk logically." Naruto's group's sweat dropped while Shido's group stare at the blonde with great fear as well at his blade. They don't want to be her food. You're trying to take command of a huge group of people, and while most of them are with you, some are with me. This will cause conflict as our two groups have different agendas. If you want to be leader, fine, but you're the leader of your group while I'm the leader of mine. And as it is, you're conflicting with our group's agenda. If you don't like what we are doing, then the door is over there, said Naruto, pointing to the door. The sick-looking kid stood up and yelled, You can't do that! What about us? Naruto turned his gaze to him, making the kid scared as hell. You seem to have forgotten your place while we were here. Alternatively, did you forget that we let you all on here? You saw us head to a bus, so you should have known that we were going to leave the school, not hold up in there. So if you don't like how things are done, well, leave. Then, like I said, we have our own agenda, so either work with us or go. And what makes you qualified to lead this group? What do you know about surviving? Asked Shido, now able to take a hold of himself. Naruto looked at him with a deadpan expression. Because I have been surviving on the streets since I was kicked out of the orphanage at 3. Trust me, compared to that it's too much easy, Naruto said. Oh my, he is an orphan. Wait, so does that mean his parents died when he was younger? Shizuka thought. The others had similar thoughts while also thinking on how he knew his parents. Now it was confusing them, because he will sometime tell about her mother and father a little, even if by mistake. For Saya, this all just brought more questions to the table. She admired his will to survive, though. Naruto was about to return back to his seat, but something caught his eye, or someone. He reached out with his hand, only to pull back a cheek. Oh wow! Mika cried as Naruto pulled her cheek, almost causing her to stand from her seat. You could see tears welling up in the corner of her eyes. Finally Naruto let go when she was only a few inches away from him. She rubbed her cheek, which was red now. She lifted her head to glare at Naruto, only to shrink back when she saw his steely gaze. Mika! His voice was cold. Hi. She stuttered. She knew he wouldn't hurt her, but still, he is scary at times. Why are you with the snake? He asked quietly. She stuttered, trying to think of a reason. As Shido-sensei forced me, she exclaimed finally, eyes closed shut. Everything was silent for a moment. After a few moments she meekly opened her eyes to see Naruto's face right in front of her. A blush crept on her face. Naruto stared into her eyes. He knew she is telling the truth. But he didn't think Shido would go that far. He turned his gaze at now again pale Shido, who was trying to back away. But Naruto wouldn't let that happen. A foot right at Shido's crotch, making the teacher turn almost white. Naruto smiled sadistically. So you forced her to stay with you? Naruto said. I don't care now. Shido screamed as Naruto's food smashed on his family jewels. All others flinched, boys were turning blue. Naruto just grinned sadistically. You were saying? He asked mockingly. Shido's face was fixed in silent scream mode. But finally uttered. I did it in HHH. Naruto again pressed his foot. Please, can you repeat that? I quite didn't hear you. Naruto asked, looking completely innocent. All were now sure, he is cruel. But when Shido saw his foot coming close. I did. I forced her. Shido finally shouted, he can't take it anymore, he would die probably just by this pain. He sighed in relief when Naruto's foot stopped. But suddenly screamed as Naruto's foot again smashed. He cried for about 1 minute, while Naruto put a hand on Mika's head. Girl looked at him little awed. Go sit with Siko, he ordered. She just silently nodded. Quickly skipping over to Siko, where she sat down smiling at the senior, who smiled back. Naruto again looked at Shido, coming close to his ear. Listen and listen well, you try anything with one of my friends, I will kill you. In the end, his tone getting darker. Shido gulped audibly, shakily nodded. Naruto finally stepped back. Rei was a bit disappointed that Naruto didn't just kill the man, but she saw that her group all had smiles on their faces as they looked at Naruto. He was leadership material in their eyes, and she agreed, but she was not going to stay on this bus with Shido, especially after she heard him mumble about how this was not over. That set her off, and she rushed out the door. Rei! Siko shouted out after her, but Naruto sighed and put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, I got it," he said, making Siko relax since Naruto was the voice of reason in their group, despite his quirks. Naruto walked out of the bus and to her oldest female friend in this now corrupted world. "Come on, let's get back on the bus," he said gently. "No way, I won't do it. I am not staying here with him," Rei growled out. Naruto sighed as he said lowly as he put a hand on her shoulder. "I understand how you feel, but it should only be a short time before we part ways with the Pisco. You can put up with him for a while, then I will give you gift." "Really?" She perked up at that, all forgotten about Shido. "Yes, Rei, I don't want our group to break up because of him," he said sadly. Rei nodded slowly. Rei was about to say something, but there was a disturbance. What was it? Well, a bus full of them was coming their way. Siko shouted to Shizuka. The bus full of undead hit a car and flipped and barreled toward both of them. "Well, shit!" Naruto muttered, still sounding bored as he saw the bus approaching them. Then he grabbed Rei and dived into the nearby tunnel, with the bus blocking their way out and on fire. Never a good sign. "Naruto-kun! Are you two unharmed?" Siko shouted from her place on the other side. She had been the first to get out, seeing if they were okay. Naruto and Rei had landed in an awkward position. She was on top of him, her boobs pressing in his face, and she was strangling his waist. Girl looked at her position, getting up quickly and muttering an apology with a deep blush. He just muttered, "Today is not my lucky day." Turned to the blocked entrance to the tunnel. "Great, now we are split." It was then he noticed the undead, which were not burning, were crawling out of the bus. They had to act fast. "Let's meet up at the police station. At the East Police Station." "What time?" Siko asked, being wary of the undead, but she did not have to worry too much because they were dropping dead like flies because of the fire. 7 o'clock. If not today, then again tomorrow," Naruto shouted. Siko nodded. Naruto again shouted, "Siko, you are the leader now, take care of them for me." Girl smiled and nodded and ran to the bus again and addressed Shizuka. "Dr. Marikawa, we are unable to advance," said Siko. "Okay, I'll turn around and find another way," Shizuka said as she turned the bus around and speed away. She just hoped Naruto was alright. In the back, Shido was grinning. Back in the tunnel, Naruto heard a spark and he knew they were in trouble. "God, you really hate me," Naruto muttered. Inside, Kyubi was laughing his ass off. He scooped up Rei bridal style and started to run. "Bus is going to explode. We need to get out of here." "Can we make it?" Rei shouted in fear. "What? You don't trust me?" Naruto asked in mock hurt. They were already halfway out when the bus exploded and the resulting fire rushed at them. Thankfully, they made their way out before they reached them. Naruto turned to look at the cave as he put Rei down, who had a blush on her face. She was blushing a lot lately. They ended up by some stairs that probably led to a park or something. He felt the presence of one of them, turned, and kicked the thing away. Odd thing was, its head was covered in a helmet, so it survived the fall and got back up. "Now aren't you the smart one?" Naruto joked the undead biker, and then sliced its head off. "Wow, that was quick," Rei said with a smirk, knowing that Naruto wouldn't be defeated. Naruto smiled lazily and said, "Yeah, well, I didn't feel like dealing with these things at the moment." Rei chuckled and held out her hand. "Come on, let's go, Naruto." Naruto chuckled lightly and took her hand. "You know, you look better with a smile than that angry face you had." He brought his other hand and wiped some blood from her face. Rei had a blush on her face. Naruto was always nice and that made her feel good while she just hurt him. Deciding to change to the subject, she asked, "So, are we just going to walk to the city?" "No." Naruto as they walked a little further to a stoplight to see a crappy-looking motorcycle. "The guy was wearing a helmet, so I am guessing this is his," he drawled as he picked it and got it started. "Do you even have a license?" Rei asked with mirth. "No, but I am sure the coppers won't mind that much, they do love me, you know," Naruto said with a chuckle, getting one from Rei as well. "Come on, we got ground to cover." Rei shook her head at his antics and got on. As they rode down the highway to hell, Rei snaked her arms around his torso and leaned her head on his shoulder. He felt warm and she liked that. Their world may have ended, but the new world was just beginning, but it's all the same for me, just like the leaf. Both Naruto and Rei were overlooking the city from the mountain road as undead filled the streets. It was about 9 at night. "Do you think someone will come to help us?" Rei asked gloomily. "No," was Naruto's simple bored reply. Rei looked at him like he just kicked her kitty. "But why? How can you say that?" she asked, little distraught. "You told me you saw self-defense heli at school rooftops. It is the same deal here. We are not some important figure in this city or country. They won't be bothered to save us, so we should move with worst-case scenario in mind." "Worst-case scenario?" Rei asked fearfully. Naruto nodded slowly. "We might never get any help." "Never." Her voice was low. "He has just said that they might never get out of this situation." Naruto simply closed his eyes. "Then how are we gonna make it through this?" she asked. "It's simple, really." "Huh. We can't make a decision before checking on your families. Then it will be your choice, would you want to be with me or with your family, same goes for the others." She stared at him, not able to say anything. But he continued, "I am here to ensure all you people's safety, and I will try my best to protect all of you." As Naruto stared over the city with his half-lidded eyes, Rei could see immense sadness and pain in his eyes. She always admired him for his conviction, but what about you?" she asked. "What about me?" asked Naruto, confused a little. "What will you do after we meet our parents?" Naruto hummed, then chuckled lightly, ruffling her hair playfully, making her pout. "I didn't think about that. No, I thought a lot, but there are too many unstable variables that I can't make a decision yet." She was about to retort, but they heard groaning from behind them. They saw them coming towards them. "We should go," said Rei. Naruto was more than ready. "Yeah, yawn." Noises produced from different type of vehicles and their engines could be heard to a long distance. Someone was shouting, "It's dangerous outside. Don't get out of your car at any circumstances." Among the vehicles, there was a microbus. Inside the bus, "We progress roughly 1 kilometer per hour, said Siko, who was standing near Saya's seat. "I wonder if we can even make it over the bridge before morning at this rate," said Saya. Suddenly Hirano's stomach growled, who was sitting beside Saya. "Whoat." But Saya don't take it lightly. "Oh, shut up! Put a lid on it! Put a lid on it!" "But I am hungry," he muttered solemnly. Suddenly there was sounds of gunshots from outside as the police killed some undead. But 2 of the girls from Shido's group were scared. Suddenly Shido came in front of them, slithering like a snake, smiling sickly. "They're there." As the girls looked up as he hugged both of them. "We are safe in here, Sensei," one of the girls said hopefully. "There is nothing to worry about, we will be okay, he finished with a sing-song voice. Siko stared at him dispassionately while others of his group clapped. They have entered the city and were now traveling through the silent streets. But to their surprise, there was no one, even the undead. "There is no one here," Rei whispered. "Either they ran away or they died. If they are dead, they would be walking around. There is no food left here, so they go the next place." We have to fill the gas," muttered Naruto. They arrived at the gas station after some time. "We are here," he said. Rei, though, was little skeptical. "I wonder if they still have some gas? Every gas station has at least enough gas to fill up 1,000 cars. I think they have enough." He knew better than to give her an unsure reply. Naruto started walking to the pump but suddenly stopped, then turned to Rei with an extremely serious but still lazy face. "Rei." His tone was grave. "Why, yes." She was feeling nervous under his serious gaze. What might make him like this? Then suddenly he rubbed his neck, smiling softly. "Do you have money?" he asked innocently. She face faltered rather hard. She quickly stood up and was using all her willpower not to shout at him and strangle him. Seriously, someone asked something like that with that face. "You don't have money?" she asked harshly. I left it in my school bag," he muttered with a downcast expression. "Do you have?" he asked, hopeful. Well, I also forgot my purse and bag, she replied, embarrassed. Naruto blinked, then sighed. And you were asking me? She glares at him lightly, but Naruto just waved his hand dismissively, not in the least affected by her glare. Wait here, if something happens, scream, he said. He was about to go in, but his senses were telling him that someone was here, but he could not pinpoint the location between all that stench of undead. So, Ray. She looked up. Be on guard. With that, he entered the shop. Naruto stepped into the store and took a glance around for a second, extending his senses. Upon knowing the coast was clear, he walked over to the register and stared at it for a moment. He pressed a button, but it was locked. So he unsheathed his sword and swung it at the register, cleaving it in two. The money fell like it was raining. Ray sighed, as she was lost in thought. She leaned against a stone column in between a couple stations for distribution of gas. Her mind wandered to the activities they had done in the last 12 hours. Killing the undead, running from blasts, riding a bike. Then her thoughts got to one-sided talk she had with her father. Her father knew Naruto. Yes, she had told her father about him. He just said that to be nice with him, like he knew him. Maybe that is true. His father might have known Naruto because it felt like he does, but what her father meant by mission. However, all of those thoughts came to an abrupt halt as something crept up from behind and grabbed her. She let out a piercing scream, as something grabbed her chest, believing that any moment, a bite to the neck was coming. However, it was then, as whatever grabbed her pointed a knife at her throat, that she realized she was not dealing with a zombie. And it was why this person got the jump on her despite her thoughts being elsewhere. A zombie did not have the intelligence to sneak up on a person like a living, breathing human being. At least as far as they knew. That thought quickly died, though, as the sick freak proceeded to grope at her now barely covered chest, her shirt pulled down, and started to fiddle with her skirt, while holding a knife to her throat. He was breathing heavily, and she could only pray that nothing further would happen. Naruto had rushed outside with the speed like that of a seasoned shinobi the moment he had heard the scream, and his worried face instantly turned into a cold one at the sight before him. The scene makes Naruto really pissed. Fate in his mind was the worst thing that could happen. It also brought some past memories. In previous world, he would go to bandit camps to test his skills by destroying them. He has seen many fat women there. He would try to help as much as he could, but it was never enough. Then he had come to this world to face the same situation, but in much worse place. Now here it was again. Ray's face that was formerly one full of a liveliness that he loved. Now that same face was one that was filled with distress and panic. She was growing teary-eyed by the second at her situation. Yeah, well, who can fucking blame her? Naruto added his conscious thought. He normally didn't not curse until he can't take it anymore. Hey bro! Your girl is pretty cute, he taunted Naruto. Let her go, Naruto stated calmly. He didn't want to take unnecessary life. You dumb? Like hell I would do that. If I want to survive in this monster-filled world, I need a woman. He only further made his intentions clear as he groped Ray's wrist, trying to peel the bra down, while still maintaining firm control over her body. Let her go, Naruto said in eerie calm voice. That sent shivers down Ray's spine, but the man was oblivious to this. Are you insane? The guy asked in response. All of my family turned into those things in front of me. I had to smash every single one of their heads. My father, mother, my little brother, even my little sister. How the fuck I could stay sane? He shouted and started laughing like a maniac. She kicked out of the man's arms and got a couple steps forward, but couldn't get further than that before the man gripped her by her chest once again painfully. Naruto clenched his jaw in obvious anger. Now he didn't care about his pitiful life. He would kill him the first chance he got. She cried out at being touched again. Her tits and her voice are mighty fine. And these are pretty big, he said as he clutched at her throat with a knife, as he groped her. Naruto's jaw clenched as his anger was reaching new heights. In his mind, Kyuubi was also growling. How dare that ninja touch my jailer's women? Was his thoughts. His hands have transformed in claws. His own demon blood is awakening. As his eyes turned slits, whisker marks becoming little ragged. but he can't be rash here. Hey, you fuck her, right? Every night, don't you? The man asked as Naruto glared. However, he did tense a bit as the man's hand began to wander further south. It made Naruto just wants to take the risk and make the kill, despite the obvious danger. The man raised his arm back up at Naruto's lack of response. Or wait. You don't. You idiot! He burst out laughing. Now fill up the fucking bike, while I have fun with Dash. Naruto! Ray cried in fear and panic at the thought, as he was playing with her freeze trying to peel of the brow. Naruto clenched his jaw and finally took a step forward. And he honestly wishes he had done so earlier, as the man made a grave mistake. Fill up the bike or you'll be D-dash. He pointed the knife at Naruto, instead of the hostage. Naruto was in the guy's face in a second, left hand holding the knife arm at wrist, while with other clawed hand he brought all fingers together to make it look like a sharp blade, then he plunged it in the man's center of the chest. It all takes less than 3 seconds to happen. Ray doesn't even see him move. The man looked wide-eyed at Naruto, dropping his knife, clutching at the arm going through his chest. Ray now looked at the man in surprise. But her face lit up as she heard Naruto's words. You dare to touch my women! Naruto removed his arm with a squelch as blood poured on both him and Ray, but it did not stop the girl from running into his arms crying. The man crumbled to the floor, staring at Naruto in obvious shock and fear. Ray was sobbing uncontrollably, leaning in his arms trying to go deeper after her near-fate experience. Naruto pursed his lips as he slowly wrapped his arms around the girl, despite the dying man at their feet. How could he allow this to happen to Ray? He promised that he won't let anything happen to them. One tear rolled down his eye. She needed someone to remind her that she was safe, and a place to rest. Naruto has put the sleeping Ray leaning against the gas tank, as he filled the bike with gas. He has to think of a way to carry both of them to a nearby apartment building he has seen on their way here. He cannot take one at a time. Danger to Ray will be too great. Kurama voiced his opinion. You can use one of your chakra control exercise. Naruto blinked. The one in which you used to stick boulders to your body. Bulb lit up over Naruto's head. Stick that bike to your back while carrying her, this little weight will be easy for you. Naruto nodded as he bent down, sticking his back to the bike, and channeled chakra. Slowly he stood up, concentrating on not letting the bike fall. He then walked over to Ray, picking her bridle style, and started his trek. After 10 minutes time 12:07. He put the bike down from his back to the side of building. Ray still asleep in his arms. He has taken rounds around building and didn't found any undead. There was blood but nothing else. He didn't want to scale the complex with the sleeping Ray, so he decided to use ninja way. His breath evened. He put a foot on wall, then another and another. He reached the 3rd floor balcony of the apartment building he had stumbled upon. The glass door was open, but he highly doubted that meant any type of security risk. All he had to worry about was the potential for them to be in the room he was about to enter. Naruto set Ray down gently outside on the balcony, before taking a large leap to just gain a moment's vision of the roof of the apartment complex. After everything that happened that night, he wasn't about to lose his sleeping friend to something as random as a zombie walking off the side of a rooftop. Naruto looked down at the girl who, despite the stressful night, appeared to be sleeping rather peacefully. There was a time in his life that Naruto remembered vividly where he wished to be accepted. Now he was accepted. He can't let that go. Naruto shook his head free of thoughts and stepped through the threshold of the apartment before slowly and quietly closing the glass door behind him. He hoped Ray wouldn't wake and start a panic, but he has to check the apartment first, he can't take a risk here. And with that he was gone in a flash, or which was his top speed. He had trained his body and speed, but he can't show that in front of his friends or they might freak out, or so he thought. The speed at which he was able to search room to room of the empty house would have been incredible to anyone here. He barely needed to spend no more than 5 seconds in each room in order to effectively check the room high and low for any unwelcome guests. He pushed aside the irony of the fact that he himself was likely an unwelcome guest. It was quick, effective, and decisive. He had cleared the house in exactly 57 seconds, and was opening the glass door with the house lights on within 1 minute, 3 seconds. He silently stepped inside with Rei scooped back up into his arms only to gently lay her on the couch. He made his way through the house, taking a closer look at it now that he was sure it was safe. It was obvious that there had been quite the struggle in the house. There were tables and chairs flipped over in what could only be considered the living room. Kitchen knives halfway drawn out as if someone was deciding upon choosing that as a weapon, before finding something else. Even the sink's cold tap was slowly running. However, he doubted the apartment owners would care. He frankly doubted the apartment owners were alive. He moved his way into the bathroom, and prepared a hot shower. Naruto moved back into the living room and silently grabbed the fallen tables and chairs, and proceeded to barricade the door, another thing he felt slightly ironic given his barricading his waist speech he gave earlier in the day. Now he was becoming a hypocrite. But if he needed to make an escape, he would simply take her and jump off the balcony. Alternatively, jump onto the roof. He has plenty of escape routes. He then moved back into the bedroom and pulled out his trusted Naruto's handbook. He put it on the bed, flipping through the pages. Then, coming at the desired seal, channeling some chakra. There was poof of smoke. When it cleared, there lay a dress. How he remembered her adopted mother had made it for him with all her heart. How he had cried at seeing this. Someone working so hard for him makes his heart swell with such joy and happiness. He has played with Sia that whole day, not thinking of anything else but how lucky he was. Kurama was too happy with that. And with that fleeting thought, he made his way back to where he had laid Rei down before he scooped her back up into his arms. He smiled lightly at the way she curled up into him. But that fleeting thought passed as he walked her into the bathroom with the now hot running shower. Naruto stopped as he thought what he should do now. Should he wake her, and let her do it herself? No, she has suffered a lot. Waking her up is not an option. Should he just set her in the tub and wash her himself? But she doesn't have spare clothes. Should he set her in the tub and wait? They don't have much time. He sighed as he thought, she can shout at me all she want, but we don't have much time. He then strips her up of everything except of her undergarments. Even if he wants to blush, he has trained his mind too much for these sorts of things to affect him. First, he trained in mind with Kurama showing him all type of perverted images he could imagine of different sexual experiences he had in past. At start, he would be read in few minutes, but with time, he came in complete control. It was one of the reasons he has such good control over emotions. After he has mastered mental attraction, he proceeded to physical attraction. He would go to brothel. He had asked them what he wants to achieve, and has given them a lot more money. At first, he was like a wild beast in heat. He would give in quickly. Well, that would make the women's night, as they would get the best sex of their life. But slowly his training paid off and he was able to control himself from physical attraction too. He moved in closer before aiming the shower directly down the drain before setting her down at the back of the tub. He quickly stripped his shirt so he wouldn't be dealing with wet clothes. Naruto sighed as he lightly ran the hot water over the girl's feet at first. It wasn't scalding hot by any means, it was simple shower water, and he was sure he could pour it over her head just fine if it weren't for the fact that they had been outside in the cold all night. Rei seemed to be stirring from her sleep as Naruto silently continued to wash the drying blood of her body, occasionally using his hands to rub off the few dried flecks that had hardened and stuck to the skin. It was only when he had moved the water to Rei's upper body that she realized her dream of relaxing in a hot tub was indeed not real, and she nearly slipped around with a yell of surprise as she saw it was Naruto giving her a bath. Normally she would have yelled pervert, but she knew Naruto was not. In school, girls were flocking him at every corner. He could have enjoyed himself any time, but he didn't. Once she thought he might be gay, but that was too thrown out of window when he almost killed a boy who by mistake touched his ass. Shudder, that was really scary. What are you doing? She all but squealed as she attempted to cover herself before flicking a bit of water in his face. He didn't even blink as water contacted to his face. He wiped with his free hand, also running a hand through his hair as he sighed. This was going to be a long night. Naruto stared at her for a few seconds with his bored gaze. He then looked at the shower handle, raised it up, allowing a stream of hot water to rise and fall. I was showering you because you were asleep, he said in a deadpan plus matter-of-fact tone. Rei had gone completely red in the face at the scene playing out before her, almost completely aghast at the fact that Naruto didn't seem to find anything wrong with the situation. They are not a married couple. And you don't find anything wrong with that? She nearly yelled, but controlled her emotional state and remained relatively quiet. She didn't even know where she was being showered. Naruto outwardly schooled his features but inwardly was chuckling along with Kurama at the girl's expense. He opened and closed his mouth, then he looked into her eyes and asked seriously, Do you want to listen, truth or lie? Now she was becoming wary of him, but she answered, Truth. Naruto nodded. No, I don't. She sweat dropped. His antics. Rei's retort died on her tongue that she has prepared for after hearing his answer, as did her anger, partially. You don't find anything wrong with this? She questioned, a serious look of her face despite her posture seemingly relaxing. Naruto sighed and shook his head, his hair swaying slightly. He gently ran the water over her hair, where most of the blood was located. I used to do this for someone, in the past, also with less clothes, Naruto explained as if that answered everything. She leaned her head down further between her legs for a moment, letting the water wash on her back as she quietly thought over her current situation before sighing once again and sitting back up. I can't believe I'm doing this, she said quietly as she looked up and over to Naruto, who was crouched down to a knee next to her. Look away for a second, she said. How can she be fine like this in front of someone she like? She answered her own question. Plus his non-shifting gaze and no blush make it easier. Naruto raised an eyebrow, but complied quietly, and unlike a teenage boy, he turned away for the girl. He heard a bit of shifting around in the tub before two wet slapping sounds hit the floor beside him. He looked down without turning around and realized it to be the girl's remaining articles of clothing. You can turn around, Rei said tensely, but quickly added on. But I swear if you are just looking to grope and stare at my tits, I will beat you to death with the shower handle you are holding. She finished with a promise as Naruto got to turn around and stare face to face with her intense gaze while saying, Hi, in an exasperated tone. Naruto turned around, not even giving a glance at her now new appearance. But he knows how difficult, to stop from taking an instinctively first glance. He handed her the shower handle. She gently took it as he reached back around her for what she could only assume was soap or something. Rei, on the other hand, suddenly had it sink in as Naruto rose up his body over her to reach behind her for the soap. The perfectly sculpted but still somehow soft, but heavily scarred chest in front of her was not something she ever anticipated from someone like Naruto, who is always laid back, or even any 17-year-old teenage. She knew that Hisashi likely didn't have a scar on his body. Hell, Hisashi didn't even have anywhere near Naruto's body. She honestly doubted anyone she had ever met had a body like that. Even her mother, whose level of physical fitness was one she came to accept as one of the best bodies around, even she would probably never compare to Naruto, but how can a laid-back guy like him be this fit? It was a bit silly that she had warmed up to the idea of this so easily. But the numerous scars that covered his chest alone makes her forget about his previous predicament. She blushed a bit as she had just complained about the idea of him staring at her, and here she sat doing nothing but ogling him entirely in the few moments that she could get away with. Silently she almost wished that she hadn't told him not to look. But now she didn't even know if he was even going to look at her now, which was frankly disheartening. It is a sad thought in anything when one would put everything out there to be seen, and then only being barely spared a glance. She hoped that wouldn't be the case. These thoughts crossed her mind in only few seconds. Her ogling stopped, but she couldn't control her gasp as Naruto came back around with soap in hand, and a free hand full of bubbles. Hold the shower over your head? He asked simply. Rei stared and blinked at the blonde, only to stare some more. I just spent the past 30 seconds ogling you and you asked me about the shower head, and the boy I want me to love, I just said not to look at me or I will beat him to death, and he didn't even spare a glance. What is wrong with me? Sure, she said quietly. He then proceeds to rub bubbles in her hair, smiling lightly. Rei stared at his face as if expecting him to look at her freeze, but he didn't. Rei then asked a question that was bugging her. Naruto? How do you have so many scars? She asked quietly. At this, Naruto stopped in his tracks. She thought like she has dig her own grave, but she didn't back off like all other times. They have to know each other better, and there will be no better chance than this. He sighed loudly as he slowly again continued to massage her hair. She was feeling like she was heaven under his soft hands. He answered lightly, "My childhood was not good, Ray." At his tone, she knew he didn't want to talk about it, so she stopped. But she got a little new information. It was then that Naruto proceeded to go over her body again with his hands, and Ray couldn't help the heat rising to her face. Just who the hell was the one he'd done this for? She thought to herself with an uncontrolled blush. But when she looked at Blonde's eyes, he was lost in thought, while his eyes showing sadness and pain. She now felt guilty to make him like this. "So, who was the one you did this for?" Ray asked, trying to change the subject and resisting the urge to jump a bit as he went over her feet with his surprisingly soft hands. "My mother," he softly said with a strained voice. All perverted thoughts in her head stopped at that. "Huh!" was all she could said, but then she questioned. "But you said in the bus that you were kicked out of orphanage?" Naruto chuckled hollowly, which sent shivers down her spine. He answered little over a whisper, voice slowly becoming more stained. "I was adopted." "Oh," she mumbled. Now understanding came to her. She was feeling triumphant at how much she was gaining. Her inner musings were stopped as he continued. "My mother had a weak body and she occasionally fell ill. Father didn't want to do this as it was against their codes, so I take it upon myself to take care of her." She smiled at this. He again chuckled. She looked at him questioningly. "I specially went through a training program for this, to control myself from any type of temptation." He answered, amused at her facial expression. "It was just priceless." "You mean you have trained in it?" she asked. "Of course. Without training, even a 70-year-old would be tempted by this." She held a disgusted look at his explanation. "So what can you tell me about your mother?" she asked hopefully. Naruto smiled hollowly. "She was amazing, kind, beautiful, smart, everything I can think of. She would scold me a lot, then she would pamper me. I would do anything she asked from me, even if it is to run naked in streets." She laughed loudly at his proclamation. "But she will always be concerned for me. I like whatever she cooked, even if it was burnt." She stopped laughing when she heard his now heavily strained voice. When she looked at his face, tears were flowing from his eyes and dripping from his chin. But he continued washing her, absent-minded, now holding her arm, and continued to wash her, tears still dripping, but he continued like in trance. "I would go from village to collect herbs for her, as she liked to make medicines. She was famous for it too. People would say that I am too close to my mother, but I didn't care about them. All I cared was her opinion. We two traveled together to meet her friends." Then she heard a choked sob. She looked into his eyes. They were becoming red. She tried to stop him, but he didn't listen. "I always asked if she would leave me. She just said that she would always be with me. And I believed her. She never lied to me before." His hands were now shaking uncontrollably. His voice was also shaken. "But she lied this time," he whispered, but she was able to listen clearly. "She left me alone in this world, again." She was now shocked from what he said. If she loved him, then why left him? But further explanation also tore her heart. "As she died, while leaving me behind. I wanted to follow her." At this her eyes widened. He wanted to die. "But they held me down." She just looked at him as of now. "I shouted for her to wake you up, that I was hungry." "Naruto," Ray whispered. "But as she didn't wake up, I wanted to follow her like I always did. She could not do anything. I wanted to die." Now she was fearing for his mentality. "I still wanted to die." At this her eyes widened in horror. "He can't die." "And no," she shouted fearfully. She quickly snaked her arms around his neck and hugged him tightly, not even caring that she was naked. She remembered what he said in the school. "I think I am waiting for something to happen." Her loud voice broke him out of trance, but as he remembered, what he had said was true. He sobbed in her hair. And now she was also crying. She was feeling worse. She had made him to feel all those painful memories. She never saw him cry before. It was heartbreaking to see the aloof boy to be seen like that. She berated herself for this. She has pride far too deep. So she did what she could do, she held him close. He too slowly wrapped his arms around her naked frame. She then loudly said, "No, you can't die. But." He stumbled at his words. Oh no. He never stumbled. "No buts, what do you think will happen to me, Siko, Shizuka, Miku, Takagi or Hirano?" She finished lowly. "Who do you think will take care of us?" Naruto's shoulders start stabilizing. As she uttered, "We need you, Naruto." After a few moments, his shoulders stopped shaking. Yes, that was it. They need him, so he will be there. He then took few deep shuddering breaths. He backed off from hug and I smiled. Looks like a little weight has lifted from his shoulder. Or so she thought. He can't lift that weight. Nobody can as it is now. He then slowly returned to his lazy self. "Thanks," he said slowly. She smiled widely as she wiped his eyes. "And thanks for the hug," he said with a smirk. She turned deep red while stammering. He chuckled, then brought his hand caressing her cheek. "I am grateful for it." Now she stops stammering but blushed and lowers her head. Naruto returned back to washing her. She suddenly remembered something. "Naruto. When I call my dad at school, he seems like he knows you. How is that, and what about that mission thing?" Naruto chuckled lightly. He gazes at her with mirth-filled eyes. My Rei-chan, aren't you perceptive today?" She blushed at his obvious seduction in Chan and lightly puffed her cheeks. Rei suppressed a shiver as Naruto finally moved onto her chest with his hands. However, despite that fact, he was simply gently washed over her. She honestly wished he perhaps had done something, anything. It was like it was a cruel form of teasing to be touched in such a sexual way, yet not. Why, she told him not to look again. Naruto answered, "He knows me because I worked with him." "Huh!" was her smart answer. "I worked with your father." "You mean you worked for police?" she asked, aggravated and hurt that he doesn't tell her before. Rei's gaze broke a bit as she shook her head and suppressed a shiver as a roaming hand went over her nipple. "I am more like an unofficial. They hire me for the jobs that they can't do for public reason or not skilled enough. I answer only to commander, but since I live in this area and your father's police station is the closest, so usually he gave me my assignments. But it's my choice what I want to do or not." He went back to lathering his hands in soap before moving to her stomach. "But why do this job?" "Simple. I have skills and want to use them to do something good, so what's better than help the police?" She nodded at his explanation. However, her mind stopped that train of thought as she sadly realized that Naruto had indeed not looked down to glance at her body once. She didn't know whether to be impressed for his incredible self-control, or disappointed at the fact that her body didn't seem to make it crack in the slightest. "So how did you train for this temptation whatever?" "Oh, that first they will show me different type of sensual material, and I would start blushing like a tomato." She chuckled. "But slowly it came into control, then they would change the material to soft porn." She blushed, but he continues. "Then after that to hardcore, then BDSM, masochist. Every type of sex." She was blushing like a tomato now. "But with time their effect was gone. Then they will make a woman to read porn in front of me, then they would sat naked with me while watching porn. Then we will move to bed and dash." "Stop, I don't want to listen anymore," she exclaimed. She can't believe he went through all that. Naruto chuckled at her expense. Rei resisted the urge to gasp at the fact that his hand was still down there. Her legs squeezed together in surprise as she pursed her lips upon receiving her answer, as some kind of electric fire roared through her, making her squeal out in surprise as her vision went white. An act which quickly caused her to cup her hand over her mouth with her eyes wide. She stared at Naruto with wide eyes, her chest heaving up and down, and her cheeks a flushed red. He held a look of confusion, then his eyes goes down to where his hand was and his eyes widened, opening fully as he retracted his hand skillfully while lightly blushing in embarrassment. With a lazy smile, he said, "Sorry, I wasn't paying attention where my hand was going," he simply said. She looked disappointed, but the blush on his cheeks made up for it. He slowly stood up. You rest for a bit. With that, he gets out of bathroom. After a few moments, he came back clad only in towel and a towel for her too. He was also holding her clothes. She blushed deep red as she stammered. What are you doing? Huh! He looked at her with his lazy, confused gaze. Nevertheless, answered. The water will run cold if I wait any longer. He picked up her undergarments. Still a bored look in his half-lidded eyes. I will wash these clothes for you, he said. Then he put the towel near her. You can rest for a while or get out if you want, he said. She just nodded, blushing face, not believing her voice. Naruto nodded, then sat on stool and started washing the clothes while humming a tune. She could see he was washing clothes easily, so she asked, Did you always wash clothes with hands? No. But in my hometown I did. She nodded. Therefore, she decides to get out as he does her work. She safely wrapped towel around her and exited the bathroom. Just as she exited the bathroom, Naruto channeled chakra into the clothes. Blood started coming of them. After about 2 minutes, all the blood was gone, completely clean. He hanged them, then started his own ministrations. After he was done, he wraps a towel around himself. Then he moved to Rei's clothes and slowly started to gather wind chakra while holding the first clothing. He allowed his basic body heat mixed with chakra to make it warm. He does that with all clothes. Within minutes, all clothes were dry. He folded them and exited the bathroom. He came to the bedroom and saw her sitting on the bed while examining his clothes. Where did you get these? She asked curiously. Naruto smirked. Naruto's handbook. Of course. She deadpanned. But why these type of clothes? Many reasons, he said as he put her clothes on the bed. She checked them and to her shock all were dry. How? She stammered. He chuckled. I have my tricks for time to time. She just nodded and undid her towel. He raised an eyebrow. No hiding. She shrugged. You have already seen all of it, you even touched all of it, so. Naruto chuckled lightly. Good enough. So you are telling me the reasons? She asked as she slowly started wearing her underwear. Oh. Yeah, 1SD, they are best suited for fighting with my sword style. She nodded. Second, I have seals engraved in them which make them much stronger than normal clothing, as well as automatic repair. You mean they repair themselves? She asked, surprised. Yes, they take their energy source from me, she nodded. And third, my mother made it for me. She stopped buttoning button of her shirt as she stared at him, felling the cloth like to touch her own mother. He retracted his hand, then picked up his clothes. Where are you going? She asked, confused. He looked over his shoulder. I can't let you see me naked. She was about to argue when he continued. Or you would be blushing and stammering the whole way. She shut up at that. Well, it is true, after all. She does not have his self-control. Then he come to her, bringing her mouth close to her ear, and whispered in a seductive tone. Rei. Why, yes. He took a deep breath of her scent which made her shiver. This will be our little secret. With that, he was gone. When she heard his chuckle, she blushed, as she knew he knew that she too wanted to see him naked. She hates his genius mind at times. How easily he can make her fluster. When after some time she came to that room, she could not help but drop her jaw in surprise. He looked really cool, just like a real warrior she saw in anime. He was wearing a white, almost cream-colored umanori hakama. On top he wore a dark blue loose kimono, just like Himura in Rurouni Kenshin, which shows some his chest plus a few scars which can only be seen from close. There was a white obi around his belt, which seems like a thick rope. In that obi was his sword placed on his left side. He can easily draw it with both hands. His hair now somehow seems spikier than before. Plus his half-lidded eyes with his bored expression gave him a hot look. Rei was now staring at him for about a minute. Now Naruto could not hold it any longer, so he starts chuckling. Rei broke out of her stupor and tried to defend herself. But Naruto just waved his hand. Then he flips through pages of handbook. Rei stared at him curiously. She knew he would bring out something interesting. There was a pop sound. When the smoke cleared, She could not hold her surprise. How did you get that? There on the handbook lay a brand new Smith & Wesson Model 500, double-action revolver in silver with black grip. Ray was staring at the gun in awe. She has seen many guns because of her father. Therefore, she knew what good is and bad. But what she was looking is a real beauty. Its shining metal shows the quality of the material used in it. She could see the model on it. She is not a gun otaku, but even she could tell it was special. Naruto chuckled. Didn't I tell you, Commander Nomi, I asked him for it, so he imported it for me. This is one of the benefits of this job. Other benefits? She asked absent-minded. What could be else? Like missing classes and not to be expelled, taking a real weapon in school, or my personal room in school. She stares at him with an incredulous expression. You mean you were allowed all that? Yep, only principal knew about it. He then put it in his obi where it has a holder-type hole for it on the right side. Now she was lost in thought. Her friend was an undercover police agent. What else is coming? But they had other jobs. We should go, it's about time. We already are late. She felt a little guilty, because she fell asleep at a time like this. But before she could think anything else, Naruto scooped her bridal-style earring and eat from the girl. What are you doing? Not that she doesn't like it, but she wants to ask. Getting us out of here. Then he takes her to the balcony, opening the glass door. Why are we on 3rd floor? She asked, but he didn't reply. He just said, Close your eyes, and don't scream. She was about to retort, but one look from him told he was now serious. So she complied. He then suddenly goes into motion. She felt air rustle through her hair. She has an idea what he has done. But she trusts him enough. So she shut her eyes and holds him tightly. Ray could feel they have changed directions a few times. But after a few seconds it stopped. She slowly opened her eyes and to her surprise they were in the street. How did you do that? She exclaimed. Naruto put her down. That's a secret. I will tell you some other time. He then sat on the bike, starting the engine, ready to go. Ray smiled. She knew he would tell her sometime. So she too sat down. Her bow staff on her back tied with a belt Naruto has given her. She snaked her arms around him, putting her chin on her shoulder. Let's go, she said. With that they were gone in night at 2:10 a.m. I come to know that he is not perfect, as I thought. And that I am lucky to be with him. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.